Hey everybody, welcome back to When Harry Met Board Games, where we feed our people with relatable content, and our victory condition is your satisfaction. I'm Harry. Before we go any further, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button somewhere on the lower right hand side of your screen. That way we could all move on with our lives and enjoy the rest of this video. Today we're going to be having another playthrough. I'll be playing through a game of Roll Through the Ages, designed by Matt Leacock, published by Eagle Griffin Games. This is a roll and write Yahtzee style dice game with a civilization theme. Now, this game is very abstracted. The components consist of 7 chunky, nice wooden dice. These score sheets here, which have the different facets of civilization. You have your monuments or your wonders here, which are really just abstracted shapes with squares inside that you check off to show the completion of these monuments or these ancient wondrous buildings. You also have these technological developments that represent different progressions within civilization. You got medicine and you got agriculture and different aspects of civilization. They're categorized as the developments, and they get you certain bonus points or certain bonus abilities like re-rolling dice or gaining more of a certain resource or another. And they also give you a victory point total at the end of the game, because the goal of this game is to have the most victory points. And finally, up here, you have cities, which represent the amount of people you have to feed and also the amount of dice you get to roll. The more cities you build, the more dice you can have and roll, and therefore be more efficient and be able to accomplish more of these things. There are also some disasters. You have one side of the die right here, the skull and crossbones, that if you roll a certain amount of them, they trigger different types of what the game calls disasters, which are bad things that ultimately take away points and also have some additional other negative consequences. So again, very abstracted. You have this thick sheet of scoring pads here. I've taken one out right here, and I will be playing solo mode. You can play the solo mode. Usually with multiplayers, you're trying to be the player who has the most points by the end of the game. In solo mode, what you do is you restrict yourself to 10 turns, and you try to beat your high score, right? So how many points can you accumulate within the span of 10 turns? This game also comes with this nice little wooden pegboard, which I do find to be the most fascinating component of this game. It adds some physical weight to the actual game, but also it kind of feels thematic. It feels like if people back in ancient times were playing a game or a board game, it would be on an apparatus such as this, right? So you have the different wooden pegs with different colors, which represent the different resources you'll be managing throughout the game. Over here in the bottom, perhaps your most fundamental resource is your food. You start the game indicates here, with 3 food. Each food can feed one of your cities. So the more cities you are building and dice that you're rolling, the more food you're going to want to acquire. You also have wood, stone, clay, I forget what this is right now, and I guess weaponry, right? So these are the different resources that are important for the growth of your civilization, right? And with the different resources, as you accumulate them, they exponentially grow how much you acquire of them. All right, so that's pretty much it. Let's start the game. So basically, like a typical Yahtzee style dice rolling game, you roll your dice and you have up to 2 re-rolls. So you get to roll the dice 3 times period. Now, usually when you roll the cross and skull bone, this is actually a blocked or a locked die. However, in the solo version of the game, you can re-roll this skull and crossbone. So that is a benefit about playing solo. So I'm going to roll for my first time right here, and this is what I have. So I did have this, and I did have these, but I will re-roll these. Now, what happens with these, by the way, the cross and skull bones, while they do give you, potential negative consequences indicated on your score sheet on the right side, they also give you 2 resources, right? When you roll this side of the die, you only get 1 resource, but when you roll these, you get 2 resources. So if I were to keep this would be 4 total resources. And the way you would indicate those resources is you give yourself 1 of each resource, starting from the bottom and going up each row, right? So in order to score an additional wood, I would have to roll resource side of the die in a future turn, or I would have to roll 6 resources, because there's 5 here in total. The food is its own thing with its own side of the die represented here. But I would have to roll 6 resources to use the 6th one here to go here, because once you're done here, you start from the bottom all over again. So I am not going to keep these for the time being, because again, in the solo version, you can re-roll these skull and crossbones. Sorry about that. So I will choose to do that, but I will set aside this food because I have just enough food to feed my civilization at its size, but I do have aspirations for it to grow in the future, so I'm going to set myself up for future turns. I'm going to set aside that die. I still have up to 2 rerolls. There we go. I rolled another skull and crossbone, which, according to this sheet right here, 1 skull and crossbone will not do anything bad for you, so that is okay. However, once you get to 2, there will be some consequences. For example, here it says a drought. You'll have -2 points, which you'll indicate here on this section of the score sheet on the bottom. I am not going to keep either one of these. This is a coin. At the beginning of the game, a coin is worth 7 points, 7 money for you, which this allows you to buy your developments. And here on the left corner, on the left side, we have different prices for all of the different developments. They start all the way from 10 and range all the way up to 60 coins. So there's nothing you could buy with 7. There is one development, for example, the coinage here, which costs 20, that allows your coin die results to be worth 12 instead of 7. So maybe in the future, I would be more tempted to keep this coin. However, I'm not, and I'm not tempted to keep this either. So I will re-roll these again. And here we go. So I've got this. This is a resource. And again, you have to start from the bottom no matter what. So I only get 1 resource and I will get 1 wood. Okay? So there's that. I will set this aside. That was my 3rd and final reroll. And then I have this side of the die, which lets you choose to get either 2 food or 2 workers, right? So I'm going to choose, since I've already rolled food, I'm going to choose for these to be workers. So first, I'm going to indicate that I gained 3 food for these rolls, which will bring me up to 6. Now I have to feed my civilization, which for now is a total size of 3. I have 3 cities represented by these 3 dice. So I have to pay 3 food, which brings me back to 3 in total. All right, so there's that. I've got my resource here, which brings my wood up to 1. And now I've chosen for this die to represent 2 workers. So what I could do is I could start checking off some of these boxes. I could use my 2 workers to work towards getting a 4th city or die. Or I could use my 2 to start building a monument here. And usually in a competitive game, you really want to race towards those monuments because there is a score for whoever's first to complete a certain monument, and there's a smaller score for who's ever second. So you really want to race to get that first spot. However, in a solo game, you don't feel that pressure. So instead, I'm going to use those 2 workers to work towards my 4th city and die, which would take 3 workers to accomplish. But I'm just going to start setting myself up. So I just checked those 2 boxes. I just in a future turn need 1 more worker, and I'll have my 4th die and 4th city. And that's that. Now, if I were at this point, I could use any coins, money I have, or the selling of these different goods, because underneath the amount of good you have, for example, here I have 1 wood. I could sell this 1 wood for 1 coin. All right, so I could sell this 1 wood here for 1 coin. However, if I had 2 wood, I could sell it for 3 coin. 3 wood, 6, and so on and so forth. So the more you have of different resources, the more you can sell it for, right? And the higher you go on this, list of different resources, the more valuable they become. So there is that. Now, whenever you sell goods, the condition with this game is you must sell all of those goods. You cannot sell partially to get some amount. So whatever amount of wood, whatever amount of stone, and so on and so forth, you have to sell it in its totality to collect that amount of coin. Now, you could never have more than a total of 6 resources. So each that you have for each given good or each given resource counts as one of those resources. For example, if I had 3 wood, those 3 wood would count towards the 6. So in total, you can never have more than 6 at the end of your turn. So there will be turns, unless you have a specific development, by the way, that allows you to. There will be turns where you'll be forced to sell because you're going to have to lose anyways. So you might as well sell them, make some money, and of course, use that money to build developments. So right now, I only have 1 wood. that is virtually worthless to me, so there's nothing much I could do with that. And that is the end of my first turn. Now I will proceed to my second turn. Let me just indicate, usually when I play solo, I use a little bit of a tally here just to indicate that I've done my 10 turns, because that's when the game ends, at the end of your 10th and final turn. So that was my first turn. Now we will do another turn here. All right, so I've got lots of workers, which I'm very happy about. However, I'm only going to keep one for now because I am really concerned about perhaps not getting enough food. You know what? Actually, I'm going to wing it. I'm going to set aside both of those, and I'll re-roll this. I've got this, and again, because I'm playing solo, I'm allowed to roll this side of the die. And that was my final roll, and unfortunately, it was these. Now, luckily, the sequence of the turn order or the phases is the first thing you do is you feed your people. So because my city is still at 3, I get to spend the 3 food that I had, and I'm down to 0 with no casualties. However, whenever you're unable to feed a city, for each city that you're short of feeding, you do tally up here on the bottom in the disasters list a negative point. So it hurts you to not be able to feed your city. So there is that. But I did roll 9 workers, and I'm going to use all 9 of those workers towards my cities. So here's 1, and that gets me my 4th city and die. Here's 2, 3, 4, 5, which gets me my 5th city and die. And here's 6, 7, 8, and so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, which leaves me just 1 box away from completing my 6th city and die. And that's it. That's all I could do this turn. Again, I don't have enough resources to sell for developments. And that was my second turn, which was pretty quick. Now we move on to my third turn. Here we go. So I've got this. I'm not interested in any of this for the time being, so I'll reroll all 3. Woo! I am going to set aside... Oh, goodness, I might be in big trouble. I have... Oh, wait. Oh, my bad. Let's do this all over again. We're going to do this all over again, folks. I forgot I had just gained 2 cities. So that means I roll 5 die. Okay, that makes more sense now. Here we go. All right, so that's still a pretty bad first roll. I will set aside this worker for now, these 3 workers. And here's my second roll. Okay, I've got some food. This is really good. I'm also going to set aside this one. You know what? I think I'm going to set aside all of these. Yeah, I'm going to set aside all of these for now. So this is my third turn. So I'm going to use these 3 and these 2 as food. So that'll be a total of 5 food. And with that 5 food, I will be able to feed my 5 cities. There you go. And now we proceed to using the rest of the die, which I'm going to use all of these as workers. So that is 3, 5, and 7 dice, 7 workers, I should say. I'm going to use 1 here to get my 6th die, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to get my 7th die. So now I have all 7 of my dice going forward for my final 7 turns of the game. Now at this point, I want to be able to invest in developments and in monuments because they're what's going to score me the game, score me points. So I rolled all 7 dice. Definitely setting this aside for food because that is very, very important. You know what? For now, I'm going to reroll all of these. Let's see what we get here. Okay, that was my second roll, and there is no food, and that is not good. So I'm going to reroll all of these here. Okay, I've got some more food, luckily for me. Luckily for me. Got some more food right there. And I've got these right here. And that was 2 skull and crossbones, which the consequence for this is drought. So I am going to get 2 negative points, unfortunately, for that. However, I do have 12 food, which I have to spend 7 of those to feed my 7 cities, which brings me back down to 5. And I've got 5 goods. So again, the way it works, when you add to your goods, you start all the way from the bottom, the wood. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sell because I want to buy a development, in particular one of the cheaper ones. So right now we have leadership, which allows me to reroll 1 die after the last roll, or irrigation, which means that the drought has no effect. Now, the drought just hurt me, so a part of me wants to get that, but I feel like leadership is more valuable. So I'm going to get the leadership for 10 coins. That's going to get me 2 points and the ability to re-roll 1 die after the last roll. So how can I get to 10 coins? Here, it's pretty simple. I'm going to do 5 right here. I get to sell this weapon for 5. I get to sell this clay for 3. And I get to sell this stone for 2. And that is a total of 10 coins. There we go. All right. And now we are done with my 4th turn. And here we go with my 5th turn. Roll all 7 of these die. I have some food and some food, which I will keep. I have a worker, a set of workers here, and I have a coin. I'm going to keep those. And I'm going to re-roll these. I still have 2 more re-rolls. Okay. I am going to... I'm going to keep this here. All right. And I'm going to re-roll these. Okay. I will set this aside. And you know what? Ooh, you know what? I think I am going to... You know what? I'm going to keep this. I do theoretically, because that was my 3rd re-roll. However, because of my leadership, I do get to re-roll. After the last roll, I get to re-roll 1 die. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep these workers here. So the first thing we do is address the food. We add 6, which brings me up to 11. And because I have 7 cities, I need to pay 7, which brings me back down to 4. Now we have my workers. I have 6 workers, which I'm going to choose for a monument. And I'm going to choose the monument that gives me the most points of all, which is the Great Pyramid. And I'm going to fill up 6 of these boxes. Check in 6 of those boxes. I gained 2 goods. 1 skull and crossbone has no disastrous results. So that is 2 goods I'll get. It'll bring my wood up to 6 and my stone up to 2. And now I have 2 of these coins, which is a total of 14 money. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get this coinage, which will make future coins more valuable. And it costs 20. So I already have 14. I just need to sell 6 worth of goods. And I could easily do that because all of my wood is worth 6. So that brings my total coins to 20. And I will buy this coinage here, which also gives me 4 victory points. By the way, endgame condition is when all of the monuments have been built by one player or another, or when 5 of the developments have been built by one player. That's the typical endgame condition for a multiple player game. However, again, I'm only playing until 5 turns, and that was my 5th turn. All right, so now we will proceed with my 6th turn. We're already halfway done with the game. Lots of food. I am, for the time being, going to keep some of this. I'm going to keep this worker right here. Now that I have coinage, this coin is very valuable to me. And I'm going to re-roll these other 3 dice. All right, so you know what? I'm actually going to keep these workers here. And I'm going to re-roll this die right here. And it's just a resource. Okay, so first thing is we address the food. 6 food brings me up to 10. I have to feed 7 cities, brings me back down to 3. Then I'm going to use all of these as workers, which is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. With those 7 workers, I'm going to contribute more towards the Great Pyramid. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm only 2 boxes away from completing that pyramid for 12 points. I got 1 resource, which I'll start from the bottom, adds me some wood. And I have this 1 coin, which for me is now worth 12. So I might want to consider getting quarrying or medicine for 15 points, or agriculture where 1 plus, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to sell a resource for 3. I'm going to sell this stone and this wood for 3, which combined with my 12 coin gives me 15. I could buy either the agriculture, the quarrying, or the medicine. I'm going to buy the agriculture. It's going to give me 3 points, but it's also going to mean that every food die I roll gives me 1 more food. So that's helpful. And that is my 6th turn. All right, now we move on to turn number 7. We're doing good, making good progress here. All right, so I will set aside some food for now. I'll set this aside as food. I'm going to keep these for coins. I'm going to keep these as workers, and I'm actually going to keep these as resources. I'm going to keep everything. So I have 5 food. I'm at 8. Those 5 food will bring me to, I'm at 3, I should say. Those 5 food will bring me to 8. I feed my 7 cities, which brings me back down to 1. I got 3 workers, which allows me to complete the Great Pyramid. I still have 1 left over. But remember, this is my 7th turn. So I'm going to have 3 more turns. I might not want to go crazy with something like the Great Wall. It's pretty big to complete. I might do something humble, like the Hanging Gardens, perhaps. So it's still pretty good, though, at 8 victory points, but not quite as an aspiration as the Great Wall. So I'll use my 3rd worker for the Hanging Gardens. I've got my 2 resources here, which I start from the bottom, 1 wood and 1 stone. And I got 2 of these coins for a total of 24 coins. If I sell for 6, which I can, that would give me 30. I could use the 30 for granaries, or I could use the 30 for masonry. I think I'm going to use the 30 for masonry. So I need to sell a total of 6 to get to 30. I will sell this right here. I believe that's cloth for 4. And I sell this stone for 2. That's a total of 6, which brings me to 30, which I'll use to buy myself the masonry, which gives me 6 points. And now a worker die counts as 1 more worker for me. All right, and that was my 7th turn. Here we go to my 8th turn. All right, I desperately need food because I'm going low on food. I'll keep these 2 for now. I will re-roll these dice. I'll keep this food for now. And I'm going to keep these workers. And I'm going to keep this coin. This is my 8th turn. So with food, I have 8 food here. I'm going to use all 8 of these as food. This is it. Yeah, I'm going to use all 8 of these as food. So that brings me to 9 food. But I do have to spend 7 because I have 7 cities. Brings me back to 2. I have these workers, but now because I have the masonry, each of these gives me 1 additional worker. So this is going to be 8 total workers. So I'm going to use those 8 first with the Hanging Gardens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I still have 2 spots left over for the Hanging Gardens. And I have this coin here, which right now gives me 12. So you know what? For the heck of it, I'm going to buy myself the irrigation. Gives me 2 more points. And now the drought will have no effect on me. And that is my 8th turn. We got 2 more turns to go. Here we go. Some food. Very important. I'll set this aside. I'm going to set aside 1 worker for now. I'm going to set aside this coin. I'm going to set aside these resources. I'll re-roll this one. And I'm going to go for 1 more re-roll. Because of my bonus power of leadership, I get 1 re-roll. There we go. Exactly what I wanted. So first we'll address the food. 6 food brings me up to 8. Feeding 7 cities brings me back down to 1. I've got this worker here. Because of my masonry, I get 4 workers. I'll use 2 for the Hanging Gardens. This is my 9th turn. So remember, I only have 1 more turn after that. So I'm going to go super humble here. And I'm just going to go with the step pyramid for my 2 additional spots to hopefully get it for next turn. You know what though? No. If I get a worker, I'm not going to do the step pyramid. Because if I get a worker die, I'm going to be able to do the stone circle anyway. So I'm going to use 2 spots for the stone circle. That's just a difference of 1 point. And then I've got 3 resources. We start from the bottom. 1 more wood, 1 more stone, 1 more clay. And I've got 24 worth of coins. So I could sell to bring myself back to 30. That's I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to sell. So I need 6 coins more. I'll sell this clay for 3. And I'll sell this wood for 3. And that brings me to 30 coins, which I will use for my granaries here. All right. So we are done with my 9th turn. And now we move on to the final turn of the game. Here we go. So I definitely need some food. I will set that aside. I'm going to set this worker aside as well. All right, let's keep on rolling. Okay, here is more food. As a matter of fact, I'll keep those 6 and I'll re-roll these. You know what? I'm actually going to keep these right here. And I'm going to re-roll these. This is my 3rd roll. I got some coin. And then I get 1 bonus roll because of my leadership. Here we go. And that's a resource. So that actually worked out perfectly. So these 6 food will bring me back to 7. which is exactly what I need to feed my 7 cities right now, and it'll bring me right back to 0. Then I'll have my 3 workers, which really is 4 because of my masonry, but that is more than enough for me to get my stone circle for an additional 2 points. Finally, I've got 4 resources. We start from the bottom: 1 wood, 1 stone, 1 clay, 1 cloth, and 1 weapon. And I've got this for 12 coins. Let's see how much I could sell. So 12, 17, 21, 24, 30. So I could buy an additional 30, but unfortunately for me, there are no more left at 30. I cannot get the big ones at 40, 50, or 60. So I'll just buy here religion for 20. And it gives me 6 more points. And I am done. So now we add the total score from my developments, which are 2, 4, 7, 11, 17, 23, 29 points. We add the total score for my monuments, which are 12, 20, 22 points. We subtract any potential, or we add any bonuses. For example, these 2 developments would give you bonus points. I don't have either one of them, so that's 0. My subtotal, we add 29 and 22, which is 51. And then we look for any disasters, which I had 2 disasters, so we subtract that. And my total score is 49. All right, guys, that is pretty much it. This is Roll Through the Ages in a nutshell. Fun little game. It's very abstracted. If you're looking for a more thematic, immersive roll and write experience, this is definitely not it. But if you're looking for something simple, you could play solo, you could play quickly, where the rules are not too heavy, but at the same time, you still feel like there's some interesting decisions. I think this could be a game for you. Thank you so much for joining us here at When Harry Met Board Games. This is Harry saying take care, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have fun gaming. Bye-bye.